Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Tales of Herding Gods based on novel. So let's start. Queer restrictions. Danboro looked at these fiendish tiny figurines and his heart leaped. Every single tiny figurine was refined using the souls of strong practitioners, therefore they were all extremely strong and only knew how to kill. Meanwhile, these strange cubes formed an incomparably complicated lock. With runes shining on it, as long as the pattern of the runes were correct, could the lock be open, otherwise, they would let out these tiny figurines. There were countless translucent figurines, and every time the runes shone out by the talisman treasure hit a cube, the cube would move back automatically and disappear. The steps to unlocking the restrictions are so complicated. It's hard to do so without this talisman treasure. The talisman treasure continued to spin and the runes shone out by all 14 sides were also ever-changing, causing the cubes in front of them to move back one by one. The talisman treasure floated forward and the tortoise-back guard walked forward. Danboro quickly followed up and walked through a very long passage. Suddenly, he saw a wide clearing in front of his eyes. It was a completely different world inside the Golden Palace Hall. From the outside, this Golden Palace Hall wasn't that big, but from the inside, it was minimally 10 times larger. There were pillars lined up after one another which were followed by golden altars of all shapes and sizes. On each golden altar, there was a queer-shaped treasure placed on it. The tortoise-back guard brought Junior Protector Sword, smiling as he walked forward. This kind of precious treasure must definitely be placed in the deepest and most prestigious location. My powers are not enough to seal it, so we can only wait for Grand Shaman to come forward and seal it personally. Danboro, you have done a great deed, even I'm envious of you. Danboro smiled at once. I had not only received a treasure from that person of eternal peace. I have also received a small jade bottle, and it's most likely a sacred medicine inside. I took a sniff and it was heavenly, as if I was going to turn into an immortal. He took out a small jade bottle from his sleeves and the eyes of the tortoise-back guard lit up when he saw it. Snatching it over, he smiled. Danboro, now that you have done a great deed, Grand Shaman will definitely reward you. Since I have brought you here in advance to choose your treasure, how can you not give presents to me? I shall take the sacred medicine in this jade bottle. Danboro gave a pained expression. The tortoise-back guard saw his pained expression and smiled, stingy. After he had said it, he opened up the jade bottle and gave it a sniff. How FIAA Grant. A smile remained on the face of the tortoise-back guard as he collapsed stiffly. Danboro held his breath and immediately snatched the jade bottle over and stuffed the cork back, not daring to take in a single sniff. He gave some thought and took out another jade bottle and collected all the air in the surroundings into the jade bottle before opening up the mouth of the tortoise-back guard. He placed the jade bottle without a stopper into his mouth and kept it there. This way he won't be able to wake up anytime soon. Phew. Danboro let out a murky breath and started to shed his skin. Another human came out from Danboro's skin, and it was Qin Mu. Now I could be considered to have used the methods of the devil path. Qin Mu looked at the skin on the ground and shook his head. Granny Sai could wear other people's skin and change constantly, however, he was still a little traumatized by it. Qin Mu took back Junior Protector Sword. He flipped around the tortoise-back guard's body to find that talisman treasure and stuffed it into his shirt. He then found some scattered items. After flipping around and not finding anything useful, he could only leave it at that. Heaven's eyes, awaken. Green Heaven's eyes, awaken. Heaven's eyes and green Heaven's eyes opened up in Qin Mu's pupils, and the densely packed runes formed 2 layers of heavens in his pupils. He looked around and everything here became clear in his eyes. Every golden altar here was covered in seal, which was similar to the cube he had seen earlier. In every cube, there was a tiny figurine which looked fierce, and these tiny figurines had their faces all warped and twisted. They grew messy hairs, razor-sharp teeth, and claws, and if Qin Mu didn't use his Heaven's eyes, he wouldn't have been able to see it. Qin Mu held up that talisman treasure and carefully sized up the runes on the 14 sides of the cube and made some comparison before shaking his head. This talisman treasure wasn't the key to unlock these golden altars, and most probably could only open this palace hall. He walked forward and looked at the golden altars one after another. He needed to act quickly as Ling Yuxiu should still be blocking the gate outside. Ling Yuxiu's ability was a level lower than him, and despite learning the fusion of Chancellor Ba Shan's battle spells, she most probably couldn't hold on for a long period of time. There were all kinds of treasures on the golden altars, and many of them were treasures unique to Roland's golden palace that were created strangely. There were some human skins that were used as canvases for painting and runes writing. There were some treasures that used skulls to make into arms bowl, human skins to make drums, as well as white bone banner, thousand venom souls devouring banner, white bone shrine. These were all magical artifacts used by heterodox doctrines. Other than that, there were also quite some good items that were shining brilliantly in a golden glow. These items seemed to be treasures created by the ones on the level of the Shaman King. Qin Mu also saw some treasures that were not from the shaman cult were also placed here. There were 1,000 streamers pagoda, sariras, which were precious treasures of Buddhism. There were also a grape-sized sword pellet, a guqin which got burned at one end, and a broken sword. Suddenly, Qin Mu stopped and couldn't move his feet away. There was a stone tablet erected on this golden altar, and on the stone tablet was the incomplete diagram of a circulation technique. He knew it was the circulation diagram of Overlord Body 3 elixir technique with one look, however, it wasn't the circulation diagram of 6 directions realm. In his hurry, he couldn't determine which realm it was. Go, I have to find the legs. Qin Mu hurried and sprinted to the deepest end of this treasury. After a moment, he had explored the entire treasury once and stopped before a golden altar. He had already seen this golden altar once, however, he had still chosen to return here. There was a lower body of a person placed on this golden altar. It was the portion of the body that was below the waist, however, it was still standing steadily. However, Qin Mu was sure that it wasn't the lower body of Butcher. This lower body was shining brilliantly in a golden glow, and even its blood seemed to be a golden liquid, as well as the golden bones. This body gave off a terrifying aura which was even stronger than the Shaman King's. The body of Grand Shaman? Qin Mu blinked his eyes and gestured around his waist before thinking back about Butcher's body. It seemed like Butcher's body could be completely placed on top of this lower body. Grand Shaman exterminated that sect that had snatched Grandpa Butcher's lower body and seized his lower body. Grand Shaman then severed the lower half of his body and placed it here, while Grandpa Butcher's lower body, which should be here, had disappeared. The corner of Qin Mu's eyes twitched and he thought of a frightening possibility. Grand Shaman had severed his lower body and attached Butcher's lower body to his body. With my medical expertise, I'm completely able to do this. Grand Shaman should be able to do this too. His scalp can't help turning numb. Severing one's own lower body to attach someone else's lower body, what's the intention of Grand Shaman? Maybe he thought that Grandpa Butcher's body was more powerful than his body of gold, which was something he could never attain in his entire lifetime, therefore he had swapped the lower half of his body. However, there could be another possibility, that is, Grand Shaman had used Grandpa Butcher's lower body to refine it into a spirit weapon with 2 legs. Qin Mu had a queer expression. The possibility of the latter was very small, but it's not impossible. He can't help revealing a distressed expression. The lower body on the golden altar also had seals, and if he stretched his hand over, his hand would definitely be eaten clean by those tiny figurines in the cubes. If Chancellor Ba Shan was here, he could just destroy these seals with his brute force, but Qin Mu didn't have this kind of ability. Grandpa Cripple had taught me heaven-pilfering sun-switching hands, but I never used it before. Could I pass through these seals and grab that lower body? His heart became worried and he suddenly started sprinting in this treasury, executing heaven-pilfering divine legs that Cripple had imparted to him. His speed was like a flickering shadow, so fast that even naked eyes can't catch it. Qin Mu sprinted and executed heaven-pilfering sun-switching hands, causing his hands to move faster and faster like lightning. Cripple's effort was all spent on his hands and legs. His legs running fast was to escape for his life after being discovered stealing. His hands were fast because he could steal stuff. Qin Mu had always been cultivating heaven-pilfering leg skill diligently, however, he had practiced heaven-pilfering sun-switching hands much lesser. Now that he was making a last-minute effort, he hoped he could comprehend more marvel of it. When he executed heaven-pilfering divine legs and heaven-pilfering sun-switching hands at the same time, Qin Mu instantly noticed something wonderful and couldn't help crying out in surprise, stopping immediately. By executing two different skills at the same time, he actually felt that these two kinds of skills were actually one. It was just that Cripple had taught him this skill by splitting them into two parts. Originally, he had already felt extremely smooth and unhindered when he cultivated heaven-pilfering divine legs, whereas now that he had executed both of them now, the speed of his vital qi circulation had increased several times. That the speed of vital qi circulation increased several times meant that the speed he moved his hands and legs could be increased by several times. Qin Mu composed himself and looked forward. The interior of the Golden Palace Hall's treasury was very spacious, having enough space for him to sprint. He suddenly exerted the strength in his legs and sprinted forward as if he was flying. The air in the palace hall gave off a tearing whistle and suddenly a bang was heard. Qin Mu had mercilessly crashed into the wall of the palace hall, which was 300 yards away from his starting point. He then collapsed backward stiffly. Around his body, a ring of white gas rose and dispersed. After a moment, Qin Mu stood up and shook his head. He exerted his strength again and another bang was created as a ring of white gas dispersed around his body. However, this time, he didn't bang into the wall and had run up the wall and then up across the ceiling with a whoosh. The tearing sound whooshed endlessly and Qin Mu stepped on the air in this treasury and whooshed over before whooshing back in a blink of an eye. Suddenly, during his frantic sprinting, he stretched his hand out and plucked. A golden altar became empty and on Qin Mu's hand, there was an alms bowl made from the top of a skull. Clank! The alms bowl landed on the ground and Qin Mu laughed out loudly. He let loose and sprinted as he stretched his hands only like a shooting light towards the golden altars beside his body. The golden altars got emptied out one by one and the treasures were strewn all over the floor. After a moment, all the golden altars were swept clean by him and Qin Mu hugged a pair of legs as he passed by a golden altar. His body suddenly halted and he placed the golden lower body down. No wonder Grandpa Cripple likes to steal stuff, so as it turns out, stealing is actually so refreshing. The youth of disabled elderly village let out a murky breath and looked at the treasures strewn all over on the floor, exclaiming in a refreshed tone, even if one leg was cut down, it's still worth it. Qin Mu suddenly came to the realization that his idea was very dangerous. That was how Cripple's leg was lost. Even though he always wore a smile on his face, he always sighed in secret and wanted to find back his leg yet didn't dare to. If he sank into the maniac stealing behavior that Cripple had before he was crippled, he would probably end up like him very soon. This kind of taste may be refreshing, but it's best to do lesser of it. Qin Mu warned himself and looked at all the treasures strewn on the floor. Other than the evil treasure created by Roland's Golden Palace, he wanted to bring everything else away, but the number of things he could bring was limited. This sword pellet must be something good for them to place it here. Qin Mu picked up the sword pellet, which was very heavy, and reckoned there must be numerous treasure swords sealed inside. His vital qi slowly entered the pellet and he heard a hum coming from the sword pellet as a curved knife flew out and slowly spun half a cycle in front of him. It's not a sword pellet, it's a knife pellet. Qin Mu was astonished. He had once seen this kind of knife pellets from the rebel army of barbarian Di Empire. The rebel army had used them to bombard Chancellor Ba Shan's Heavenly Spirits escarpment, which ended up in over tens of thousands of knives stuck on Heavenly Spirits escarpment that couldn't be taken back. This was why Torimu was able to slay the rebel army with ease. Qin Mu picked up a curved knife and he couldn't use it easily, therefore, he reckoned that a special technique was needed to activate it. However, the quality of this curved knife was much better than the rebel army's curved knives. The quality wasn't inferior to his pig slaughtering knife. He retracted his vital qi back and the curved blade returned into the knife pellet with a clink, vanishing with a trace. There was an extremely large amount of curved knives in the knife pellet, thus it was definitely a huge killing weapon. Qin Mu then picked up that broken sword. He couldn't feel any power in the broken sword, which seemed powerless and light when he held it in his hand. Qin Mu opened his heaven's eyes and green heaven's eyes to size it up carefully, however, he didn't see anything from it. Then again, for Roland's Golden Palace to place it in such an important treasury, there must be something extraordinary about it, thus he kept it as well. The Qin had one end burnt, which Qin Mu deduced to be the mark of a lightning strike after taking a look at it. That's not right. There's a baleful and demonic air from this Qin. Qin Mu looked at it in detail and felt more and more strange. That was a baleful aura from the Qin, as if there were dense blood and chi pulsing in it. Meanwhile, the demon aura was also incomparably dense. This Qin didn't seem like a Qin but more like an incomparably terrifying great demon. Could it be a tree spirit that had cultivated into a demon and got turned into a Qin by someone? Good stuff, going to take it away as well. Qin Mu carried the Qin on his back and picked up the bones of a hand. Just as he grabbed it, Qin Mu felt as if he was struck by thunder. His body trembled involuntarily and a loud and resounding voice exploded in his mind. God language. Qin Mu's expression hugely changed and immediately threw the bones of the hand away. That voice had spoken the God language, and when he had held it in his hand, there seemed to be a god appearing in his head. When he plucked this bones of the hand from the golden altar just now, he had thrown it away straight after. Now then he knew what a right decision it was for him to throw away these bones of the hand. These bones are very strange. Could it be the hand of a god? He composed his mind and pulled out Junior Protector Sword to flick these bones up. He then took a sack from the ground and placed the bones of the hand into it. Thousand Streamers Pagoda of Buddhism is also good stuff, though it's a little too big. Qin Mu sized Thousand Streamers Pagoda up and down. Each streamer of Thousand Streamers Pagoda was very exquisite and only 3 inches long, however, with 1,000 streamers stabbing elaborating into the shape of a pagoda, it was very huge. Reaching the height of several yards, it would definitely be eye-catching if he was to carry it out on his back. He picked up those few sariras and stuffed them into the sack. He then found a few jade pearls and also threw them into the sack. When Qin Mu also threw the knife pellet into the sack, only then did he feel something was amiss. The knife pellet was very heavy, however, when it went into the sack, he couldn't feel any weight of the knife pellet. He picked up the sack and flipped it around several times to take a closer look. This sack was also one of the treasures sealed on the golden altar, which he had no idea what material it was made from and what use it had. There was a strange beast embroidered on one side of the sack which was opening its mouth wide open. The mouth of the strange beast, and precisely at the position of the sack's opening. He opened his sack to look inside and saw a few items that were about the size of a sesame. They were the treasures which he had thrown in earlier. Qin Mu was stunned. He poured out the hand bones of the god, sariras, knife pellets and the rest. When these items slid out of the sack, they were still of their original sizes and there was no change. Weird. Qin Mu opened up the sack's opening and put his head into the sack to take a look inside. He was shocked as he saw a space that had an area of 6 ars and a height of 6 to 7 yards. He pulled back his head and stretched his hand into the sack. With an arm inside, he still couldn't touch the bottom of the sack. Qin Mu pondered for a moment and placed the hand bones of the god, sariras, knife pellets and the rest back into the sack. He then placed the Qin into the sack along with the 1,000 streamers pagoda. He then carried up that golden lower body and stuffed it into the sack as well. The youth then stood up and picked up everything that was on the floor and stuffed them into the sack, abandoning those that were too big to be able to stuff into the sack. A moment later, the sack started to bulge slightly and he could gradually feel some weight, however, it wasn't heavy. Qin Mu lowered his head and picked up the items which he had thrown away once more. He picked out a few pill cauldrons and one of them was a sealed cauldron which was much bigger and valuable than the one in Imperial College. All that was left in this treasury were magical artifacts that were made by the shaman cult using human bones. Qin Mu gave a sigh of relief and hung the sack at his waist, using his clothes to cover it. There's not much time left. I should go out to look for Sister Yushio and leave this place as soon as possible. The youth's heart thumped wildly and he tried to compose himself. After some calculations, he didn't wear back the human skin and instead took out his pig slaughtering knives and styled his hair to make him look like a disciple of the shaman cult. Qin Mu wore Danbaro's clothes and circulated the heavenly god creation technique of great educational heavenly devil scriptures. Minute changes started to happen to the color of his skins as it gave off a faint golden glow. With a look, he looked like a shaman of Roland's Golden Palace who had small attainments. Qin Mu flipped open the geographic map of Roland's golden palace and kept it back. His vital chi activated the talisman treasure, causing it to rise into the air. The runes lighted up one by one and shone toward the seals of the treasury's door. 12, 9, 6, 10, 7, 6, 7, 1. Qin Mu chanted numbers, and every chant would cause the talisman treasure to spin in the air, shining one of the 14 sides to the seal. When he had entered this treasury, the tortoise-back guard had activated this talisman treasure to unseal the seals. The transformations of the talisman treasure were extremely complicated, as it had 14 sides, and on each side, there were different runes. It was very difficult for him if he wanted to memorize all these runes. However, memorizing the order of these runes was not complicated to Qin Mu. He had memorized the 14 sides of the talisman treasure as 14 numbers. He then reversed the order of the numbers when the tortoise-back guard had used to enter, solving the restrictions from inside. In front of him, the cubes appeared and moved back one after another as Qin Mu walked out. He finally walked out of the treasury without a hitch. Qin Mu gave a sigh of relief and took out Junior Protector Sword to smash the talisman treasure into pieces. He then walked towards the warehouse of Roland's Golden Palace according to the directions given on the map. Even though Roland's Golden Palace was currently having their gate blocked, there was still a great shaman on duty in the warehouse. Qin Mu handed over a prescription, and that great shaman read out, 2 maces of mock strawberry, 1 tail, 6 maces of sacred bamboo, 4 maces of oleander. So many herbs, are you preparing to refine out a great medicine? Qin Mu nodded his head and smiled honestly. I was injured just now, so I'm preparing to supplement myself. You have fought that fellow blocking the gate? I have also heard about it. Many people had died. Luckily that fellow has already been killed, so it still isn't that humiliating. It was really humiliating back when Marshal Khan had blocked the gate. That great shaman prepared the herbs, and Qin Mu handed Danbaro's coin pouch over to him. Is there fresh figs formed by crimson pearl grass? Give me 4 figures. This item is very expensive, so how can we have fresh ones? Do you want dried ones? Dried ones are fine too. That great shaman brought over dried figs, and Qin Mu took one to put into his mouth. That great shaman saw that he was simple and honest, so he secretly took out a few more coins from his coin pouch and was secretly gleeful. Qin Mu's expression changed and shouted, "You overcharged me." That great shaman's expression changed and retorted angrily, "I didn't do that. You're slandering me." Qin Mu pulled into his coin pouch and said, "I know how much money I have in my coin pouch. I would know if you have overcharged me. I'm going to report this to the Shaman King." That great shaman immediately pulled back the coin pouch, and when they were both tugging on it, the jade bottle accidentally fell into the warehouse and smashed into pieces. "Don't report it to the shaman." Before the great shaman could finish saying his words, he suddenly collapsed. A fragrant scent spread out in the warehouse, and the other few shamans in the warehouse who were coming over after they heard the commotion collapsed onto the floor before they could even get near. Qin Mu threw the coin pouch into the warehouse, which landed on the body of that great shaman. He then carefully looked into the sack hanging on his waist and picked out a cauldron. It was that sealed cauldron which he had found in the treasury. "I have added 10 times the amount to lost fragrance this time. I don't believe I can't paralyze the entire Roland's Golden Palace." He placed the herbs into the cauldron, and his vital chi burst forth to circle around this cauldron rapidly. His hand techniques were ever-changing and dazzling to the eyes. After a while, he had finished refining lost fragrance in the cauldron. However, the vital chi on Qin Mu's palm still continued to burst forth with blazing flames. He didn't use black tortoise vital chi to cool it down like he did previously, and instead, burned more and more furiously. After a moment, Qin Mu stopped and opened the cauldron's lid. Pink smoke started to surge out from the furnace and spread in all directions. If not for the crimson pearl fig in his mouth, which could negate the medicinal effects of lost fragrance, he would have felt his limbs vanishing. He immediately held his breath and saw the smoke continuing to surge out from the cauldron. Qin Mu's vital chi transformed into green dragon vital chi, and he executed the wind-calling spells in great educational heavenly devil scriptures to disperse the smoke. Soon, the gust had spread lost fragrance throughout the entire mountain. He immediately rushed to a golden palace hall and carried his backpack. Securing his knives, iron hammer, he threw his sword case aside as he rushed to the direction of the mountain gate. His vital chi transformed into black tortoise vital chi and formed a ball of water vapor which then turned into a ball of water. Qin Mu placed the remaining 3 crimson pearl figs into the balls of water and sprinted. With one hand holding up the 3 balls of water, his other hand moved like a phantom. With his fingers moving up and down in different hand techniques, he tapped on the balls of water to hasten the medicinal energy of the crimson pearl figs. That 3 figs absorbed the water and soon became plump, with their medicinal energy aroused by him. Qin Mu let out a sigh of relief and suddenly, golden lights rose into the sky and hurriedly flew away. They should be the few shaman kings who were guarding in front of the sacred hall, panicking and escaping Roland's golden palace after they had seen the disciples on the entire mountain, dying from being poisoned. Dead, they are all dead. A loud and resounding voice carried terror and panic as disappeared in the distance. Qin Mu pushed his speed to the maximum and sprinted down the mountain. He saw the green bull, Hu Linga, and Ling Yuxiu all lying on the ground. There were wounds all over Ling Yuxiu's body and she was stained with blood. He immediately stuffed a crimson pearl fig into each of their mouths and they slowly woke up. However, they still felt slightly numb, along with their souls and spirit embryos that were also slightly sore. They had no idea what had just happened. Lost fragrance can scare the shaman kings away, but it can't knock them out. Qin Mu spoke quickly. I'm afraid there are a few existences that are comparable to Chancellor Ba Shan in Roland's Golden Palace who would rush here immediately after receiving the news. We need to leave immediately. Part 1 end here.